Good morning, and thanks so much for joining us here on Aspire to Retire with Ralph and Tim Short of Welcome Home Financial Partners. You can find out more about them online, welcomehomefp.com. Schedule a time to speak with them, get that complimentary second opinion, complimentary first opinion if you haven't put together a plan just yet. Again, welcomehomefp.com, or give a call 804-635-3550. Once again, that's 804-635-3550. My name is Chris Swan. I'm pleased to be joined. Normally I say as I am every week, but there is an exception this week. We are one man down. Ralph is not with us this week, but Tim Short, the younger of the Shorts, is with us today. Tim, glad to be with you once again. How you doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm glid you called me the younger one.
Well, I mean, yeah. Factually correct. So I can't say anything about that. Yeah, but pleased to have you with us this holiday season. I know it's been a cold one up there. It's taking time out of your schedule to spend with the listeners to get them ready for retirement, because we all do aspire to one day leave the workforce. I think whether it is on our own terms, well, it should be on our own terms, but aspire to retire, and you guys help them with that day in and day out. So thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule. Here we are, the end of the year, and Congress has still done nothing to shore up Social Security. The program is headed for solvency problems in as little as 7 years. They've been kicking that can down the road. The road is getting shorter and shorter. And economist E.J. Antoni warned on Fox Business that failure to act will almost certainly mean benefit cuts in the future.
Look, for a lot of you folks, the system is not going to look like, at the time of your retirement, it's not going to look like what it does today. That's just the reality. We're not having enough kids. The population is not growing fast enough. Specifically, the number of working people is not growing fast enough. And if you're going to keep a Ponzi scheme going, which, structurally, that's what Social Security is, it relies on an ever-growing increase of people paying into the system to pay for today's retirees. If you're not going to keep that growing, that population, that working group, then yeah, you are going to have to make structural changes. That's the math.
Now, we can sit around and hope that Congress, the government, does something, but as we said many times here on the show, hope is not a retirement strategy. So should it be more of a building a retirement plan that still works, even if Congress doesn't?
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, I think the term a Ponzi scheme, I'm not going to call Social Security a Ponzi scheme.
It's aggressive, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's very aggressive. But I think it's really important to focus in on what you have control over. I mean, this year has been a heck of a year, right? And we cannot rely on the government to take action and do things that need to be done. Now, do I think changes will be made with Social Security? Sure. But does that mean that it's going to go? It just depends on who you're listening to. I mean, some people are going to tell you that it's going to be insolvent and broke and there's no more money. And then there's some people that say that, future payroll taxes will fund 75 to 80% of future payouts. So, you really got to build a retirement plan based off what you have, what you've got control over. Now, that doesn't mean that we have control over the stock market, right, Chris?
No, not at all. I wish I did.
Exactly. So, but what we do have control over is what we invest our money in. You should invest your money in things that you believe in, right? So, one of the hot things now is crypto and Bitcoin and all of those fun things. Well, the fact of the matter is that's been pretty volatile this year too. So if you were planning on, retiring when Bitcoin dropped below 100,000, well, guess what? You took a major hit. So if all your eggs are in one basket, you're going to have some issues. Same thing with Social Security. If you're relying solely on Social Security, which I hate to say this, but there are a lot of folks out there that is a very, very big part of their plan. And if you were anticipating $3,000 or $2,500 coming from the government, and the next thing you know, now it's, half of that or maybe 2/3 of that, are you still going to be able to live that you want? Because everybody says the same thing when they come see us, is now everybody's got a little bit of a different opinion as far as what they want to do, except for everybody still has the same theme of they want to live on their own terms.
Sure.
Right? Now, hobbies will be different. Travel looks different. TV watching might look a little different too, but at the same size, you've got to make sure that you can retire the way that you like. And the best way to do that is to plan with what you already have established moving forward and not relying solely on Social Security or having that be a big part. Most folks nowadays don't have a pension, which is kind of unfortunate, but that's another thing is, if we don't have a pension and we only get half or 2/3 or 3/4 of Social Security, if we haven't done well with saving or we don't have an income plan, retirement's not going to be what you want it to be.
If you were to, in the working world, if you knew that 5 years from now you would take a pay cut, you would take a 25% pay cut, you probably wouldn't be very happy. You'd probably try to find another position, another way to replace that income. And the same sort of thing when it comes to Social Security. We don't know what the future is going to hold necessarily, whether there is, the elimination of benefits almost certainly not likely, but a reduction in benefits, especially for people that aren't retiring and relying on that money, drawing on that money just yet. So when you guys meet with clients now, do you address that elephant in the room, the possibility or the probability of there being a cut in the future?
Oh, absolutely. Because that's a big piece of it. Once again, when it was, generations ago, Social Security was a big part, right? And everybody's really just, well, I hate to say it this way, but a lot of people feel like they're entitled to it, which we are because we paid into the system for so long, right? So, Chris, if I loaned you money, I expect for you to give me that money back at some point in time.
Oh, really?
Right?
No. Okay.
Yeah. So it's the same kind of concept. So, if we're saying we're taking a look at Social Security being X amount of dollars and you plan around that, and then the next thing you know, it's not X, it's now Y. Well, guess what? That's going to change things. So I think the best strategy, once again, is focusing on what we have control over, how you invest your money, what monies are you going to need in retirement? Because a lot of people these days have never budgeted, right? They have no idea what a monthly budget looks like. And a lot of people will say, well, you know what? I spend about $5,000 a month. Well, then we go through our retirement roadmap and they're like, well, wait a minute. Maybe it's not $5,000. Maybe it's $7,500, because if you're not very diligent and you're not really taking a look at everything that's coming in and going out, how are you going to know what you're going to need? And that's one of the biggest mistakes when it comes to retirement planning is everybody just sits there and looks at, hey, I've got $1 million in my TSP, or I've got $500,000 in my 401k. Okay, well, great. That's a big piece of it. But on the same side is how do you shift and you start taking a look at where the income will come from instead of just taking a look at, hey, my money is growing.
And ideally having that income being reliable and consistent, that isn't entirely subject to the whims of the market. We're going to talk about that in just a little bit here. But, Social Security was going to be, or is one of those components where everyone has that, when they begin claiming that is money that's coming in, mailbox money, I've heard it been dubbed. If that check does get reduced and you've been relying on that consistently, having a plan, going in and saying in 7 years, if there is a reduction in benefits, how do I make sure my quality of life doesn't change? Because I don't know, Tim, in all the years that you guys have been doing this and all the clients that have come through the doors, 3 offices in the Richmond location, by the way, or in the Richmond area, has anyone ever said, I want to see a reduction in lifestyle during my retirement?
Nope, not one person. And once again, you work so long, you don't want to rely on somebody saying, hey, you can't do the things that you've wanted to do, right? And that's where it comes into play is you've got to be self-sufficient. You got to look out for yourself, because as much as the government wants to try to tell certain people that they can rely on the government to live, it's not going to happen. But I think one of the biggest things that we talk to folks about is, the different strategies when it comes to Social Security, because right now, for most folks, the earliest you can claim is 62 and the latest you can claim is at age 70. And everybody's full retirement age is going to look a little bit different, right? Depending on the year that you were born. But what if they shrink that window, right? So like some of the strategies that we talk to folks about are maximizing, and sometimes it could be one spouse who's the breadwinner might delay as long as possible. And then the other one might take the spousal benefit at 62. Well, what if they eliminate spousal benefit? What if they move the bar back from 62 to maybe 65, right? And maybe they shrink it instead of 70. Now you can't claim it any later than your full retirement age. So I think that's one of the things that they're probably tinkering around with, not necessarily, hey, we were going to promise you $2,500 when you get to age 67 or whatever your full retirement age is, and now it's only going to be $1,500. But once again, there are going to be some changes that are going to end up happening because, Chris, I think everybody here in America can say this, is we don't have all of the faith that we probably should have in the government to make sure that they get this done.
No, I am banking on the fact that what they said 7 years now, we'll probably start hearing more conversation about it in the next 5 years, and then probably won't have a resolution until pretty close to that 11th hour there. So the retirement roadmap process that you guys do, think of a road trip and think of obstacles along the way. There is an obstacle along the way in the form of whatever is going to happen with Social Security. The goal is to navigate around that, navigate through that without it, jeopardizing the trip and keeping you from getting to your destination as a whole. So having a conversation, starting to develop a plan, and that plan, as the parameters change, as the obstacles change, being able to navigate and keep you on track. That is what it's all about with the retirement roadmap process. If you find ways to supplement or replace that income right now so that it does not affect you in the future, and let's say that they do resolve things, guess what? You suddenly still have an increase in your pay, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing either. But you need to go ahead and address it. You need to start planning. And that is what the team at Welcome Home Financial Partners does. Again, 3 offices here in the Richmond area and available by going on to the website, welcomehomefp.com. You can find out more about Ralph, about Tim, the entire team at Welcome Home Financial Partners. Or you can give a call, schedule that complimentary conversation, and begin that retirement roadmap process, 804-635-3550. You may have asked yourself this question. In retirement, can I live solely on investment income? In other words, without dipping into your principal? Well, that's going to lead to more questions. What are the financial instruments that you're using to create that income? Do you have to resort to higher risk to generate that income? And would you have to have saved $1 or $2 million to safely pull the income that you need? So if someone came in, Tim, and they asked this question, can I do this without dipping into my principal? How would you answer? Is it a bad thing to actually dip into that principal?
Well, I think, it always depends on everybody's individual situation, right? I know we say that quite a bit, but it's true. If you want to say, hey, I don't want to dip into the principal, well, if you've got a couple $1 million saved up, that could potentially be a way of going about it. But it depends on a lot of things. What type of risk level are you willing to take, right? But if you're looking to not dip into your principal, there's probably going to be a little bit more risk there than you would anticipate. So risk is a big thing. When it comes down to the different types of vehicles, are we looking for dividend paying stocks? Are we looking for other ways of going about this? It's really going to depend on how much you need. But if you're looking to not dip into your principal, but need $10,000 a month and you only have $100,000 saved up, well, it's probably not going to work out. No. So I think, it's not necessarily a bad thing to dip into your principal, but there's a lot of people that want to leave all of their money to their beneficiaries, whether it's kids, grandkids, spouses, whatever, and they don't want to touch their principal. That could be another way of that thought process. But I think it's really important to hone in on what your overall goal is, because there's some people that don't care what money is left behind. So is it really that bad of a thing to dip into the principal? I think most folks around our area, they've done pretty good at saving. Some people have the ability to not dip into their principal, but then some don't. But what if instead of taking a look at the principal or not the principal, what if we can guarantee income, right? So if we need $5,000 a month, what if we can put it into a vehicle that will guarantee you that amount of money for the rest of your life? And then the other money can do something a little bit different, because going back to the risk, if you've got your expenses and your lifestyle funded in a guaranteed manner, then your other accounts, your other monies, it doesn't necessarily matter if you ride that roller coaster, as long as you've got the heart to stay in it. And that's where I think it's important, because especially this past year, there were a few times where people were calling in, okay, hey, is doomsday upon us? Is this what's going to happen? Because there was so much change. I mean, if nobody's heard of the word tariff nowadays, I mean, they've lived under a rock for the past 365 days, right? So, I think it's important to focus in on not necessarily what the number of your accounts look like, right? I know a lot of people nowadays are chasing that $1 million or $2 million or $10 million, but there are some people who don't need that amount of money, right? So some people can still live off $250,000 or $500,000 or whatever the case may be, because you can guarantee that income. I'll give you a quick little story here. Years ago, there was a lady who came in. She called in from one of our TV shows, and she came in, and I just knew something was off from the onset. Something was off. And I'm like, okay, what is about to happen here? Okay. And she's just, Tim, I didn't do what I was supposed to do. I'm not in good shape. I haven't saved a whole lot of money. And I'm like, okay, well, let's sit down. Let's, go through the process. So meeting number one, we just kind of get to know them, see what their financial situation looks like. And then meeting number two, we'll build the roadmap, go through the analysis, so on and so forth. So she shows her statements, and altogether she had about $175,000. Okay. But most people might not be able to retire comfortably on $175,000. Now, when we get to her pensions and her Social Security that she was already claiming, she was $5,000 higher per month than her lifestyle. Oh, so in this situation, obviously, would we like to have more than $175,000? Sure. She didn't need it. So after we went through the process, we got her back in for the roadmap, took a look at a few different strategies. She's like, man, why was I so worried about only having $175,000? And I was like, not quite sure. But that's where it comes to, the income is more important once you get into retirement than the overall investment.
I think, not being able to speak on it, I think it's because so many people, they hear these magic numbers, whatever the talking heads are, you need $1.5 million, you need $3 million. And so it's easy to go in the back of your brain, I need that. Well, really, it's more a question of, I need X amount of dollars per month to maintain my quality of life. And that's going to vary from person to person. There is no magic number aside from what's going to work best for you. that does come back to that B word, budgeting, and figuring that out. But, generating a plan around that. And if it is a case where you don't have to dip into your principal, fantastic. If it is a case where you are going to and you don't, you don't intend on leaving any money to beneficiaries, that is okay as well. Everyone's situation is different. We do say that so often, but I mean, it's the truth. So having that conversation and figuring out where you are and how to continue to get to where you want to be to, through, and beyond retirement. That's what the team at Welcome Home Financial Partners does, week in and week out. It has been a heck of a year financially, by the way. The ups and the downs. And I'm sure you guys are taking plenty of calls with concerns with the tariffs, with Doge at the beginning of the year and things like that. But if you have a plan in place, it can hopefully lay some of those fears to bed and say, we've accounted for things like this, or the money that is in the market that is aggressively invested into the market, I'm actually not going to touch for 10 or 15 years. So I can think like a younger-minded investor. So it comes down to having that plan, and that starts with this magic number, actually, 804-635-3550. That is how you set up that complimentary time to speak with Ralph Short, with Tim Short, the team at Welcome Home Financial Partners, and start developing that plan. 804-635-3550. You can go to the website, and that's welcomehomefp.com. One of Hollywood's most famous actors just recently celebrated his 100th birthday, Dick Van Dyke. His career spans 75 years, and he told Al Roker on the Today Show that there's one description he doesn't go by, and that's retiree.
You don't stop. You're not going to retire, are you?
Oh, I don't want to. I mean, it's my hobby. It's my life. I love it. I'm looking for work right now.
What haven't you done that you'd like to do? What role?
I wanted to be Scrooge. Always wanted to play Scrooge, and I could do it. I still got time.
I could see him being a good Scrooge. As jovial as he is, I could definitely see him capturing that. A lot of financial advisors map out a retirement plan that lasts to age 100, perhaps even longer. How do you help clients create that income stream that lasts as long as they do?
Well, step number one of that process is going through the retirement roadmap, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there are vehicles that you can use to guarantee yourself some income. But, I think there's a lot of people nowadays that do want to. I feel like there's a shift as far as there's a lot of people who wanted to retire, early 50s or maybe even late 40s. And we still have a lot of folks like that. But then now there's a lot of people that want to retire from their career probably around the same time, but they want to go back to work. They just want less stress, right? I met with a lady last week. She called in from one of our television programs, and she just kept on saying, hey, I'm in a toxic environment, things aren't looking well. So she wants to plan out her retirement now. And there's a lot of people that want to continue to work in retirement. They potentially just want a little less stress, right? We're living longer. So they say. Obviously, Dick Van Dyke, he just hit 100. So there's kind of a little proof in the pudding that there are people who are outliving where they had anticipated, right? So it's important because, if you retire at, let's say 55, just like this young lady that I'm speaking to is looking to do, well, you could have 45 plus years of retirement.
Yeah.
That is a awful long time. So I think it's really important to focus in on guarantees, but what you also have to reconsider is, hey, what $1,000 buys you today, you fast forward 45 years, not quite sure what the value of $1,000 is going to be at that point in time. So that's one of the things when we talk about planning is often overlooked, because when things look great, if you're $5,000 a month ahead of the game in your guaranteed income, great. But in 10 years, in 20 years, 30 or 40 years, what does that look like? So you've got to make sure that your investments are still working in a proper manner on top of that guaranteed income.
I had dinner with a friend of mine earlier this week. I know her from college, and she's done really well for herself. She's an air traffic controller. Obviously, the government shutdown was a little stressful for her this year.
Sure.
But she was telling me, 5.5 years from now, when she hits 50, not to give her age, but that's what it is. She plans on retiring. That's it. That she's done. And I went, that's great. I think you've got the means to do so. It certainly seems that way. But you're going to be spending potentially longer in retirement than you actually did in the working world, which I think for a lot of people, we don't know how long our retirement is going to be. Ideally, as long as possible. But we also want the funds. We want that money to come in and be as reliable and last as long as we do. And so developing this plan, developing these strategies, so that not just so that you can pay your bills and that's it, but have the fun stuff as well. Being able to travel and being able to spend more time with the grandkids, spoil the grandkids, or whatever it is that you want to do, charity work. Having that plan in place, having that roadmap in place is the first step So figuring out what you want to do in retirement, it's a bit of homework, but I have a feeling that most of the people out there have daydreamed about what they're going to do when they, stop working.
Well, I will tell you, to your dismay, possibly, there's a lot of people that haven't really considered what they really want to do once they get to retirement. Because, most people are working so long that they don't necessarily have but so many hobbies. And so there are a lot of people that, because that's one of the questions that we ask is, you get to the finish line, what do you want to do? Right.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people like, you know what? I haven't really even considered it. I was just focused on working, building up the wealth. And now I'm kind of at this crossroads of, what do I want to do? Do I want to go do pickleball, or do I want to golf? Do I want to travel more? Do I want to go buy or rent out a camper? And, a lot of people nowadays want to relocate. And this is what we talk about is, hey, if you want to relocate down, and that's kind of where everybody's going, is further south, right? I actually saw a story this morning on the news about colleges. So the SEC apparently is getting much more influx of northern kids. And obviously one of those is it's more affordable,
right?
But also too is the weather. But that's where, with retirees, that's kind of where they want to go, whether it's Florida, South Carolina, Georgia, whatever. You've got to factor that in. And one of the worst things that you can do is not test drive something. Just like your retirement plan, you should test drive where you would potentially like to relocate. So if you want to say, hey, I might think about just heading down to Myrtle Beach. Great. Go live down there for a month. See if you like it before you start making these drastic changes, especially in the housing market that we find ourselves in.
Yeah.
It's very quick to get yourself into some trouble. So you want to have that in the back of your mind as well. And
that's the beauty of retirement is it's not going to be something that is concrete. Obviously, who you were 10 years ago is probably not who you are now to a full extent. You probably have developed new hobbies or things that you enjoy. You've discovered these things. You're going to do that in retirement too. And so having a plan that is not set in stone, that is not concrete, something flexible like the retirement roadmap, so that, when these things do occur, you go, I'm suddenly really into pickleball and I want to, spend a lot of time playing that and, factoring that in. Or I do want to travel more. I do want to, make these memories with my grandchildren and spoil them and take them to Disney, things like that. Being able to go back to the plan and recalculate and say, this is how we continue to stay on track. And speaking to the test driving things, that's how it should be, in the way that people don't usually just buy a car sight unseen. You want to test drive and make sure that is the vehicle for you. It'd be awful to, drive off the lot and then go down 5 miles and realize, it makes this noise that I'm not comfortable with. And now, suddenly it's tricky. In retirement, the same sort of thing. You want to test drive that, whether it is a budget. You go, I think I'm going to be fine on $7,500 a month or $5,000 a month, whatever it is. And if you're still in the working world, you test drive that a little bit. You go, actually, it is going to be more, or it's going to be less. But now I can reallocate that, or I can find more hobbies, things like that. Moving, that would definitely be a big challenge if you were to move somewhere sight unseen, or just someone that you've dreamed of, and then you find out, the weather here is actually really too hot for me, or the taxes, or what have you. So having these conversations and then test driving them, even if it's test driving retirement a little bit, maybe you're not fully prepared to step out of the working world. Dick Van Dyke, great example. He's still 100 and he's still talking about, what he wants his dream roles to be. Taking a step back, maybe a reduction, a phased retirement. It varies from person to person, but it's all part of that conversation, and that is what factors into that retirement roadmap. So schedule a time to speak with the team at Welcome Home Financial Partners. So you can go online to the website at welcomehomefp.com. You can also click on the media tab there and find out when they are on TV and see Ralph and Tim's lovely faces on air as they give more advice. Or you can give a call, set up a time, and get that FaceTime with them in one of their offices, 804-635-3550. Tim, do you have a favorite Hallmark Christmas movie?
Absolutely not. I do not. Now, if I brought my wife on the show, she'd probably list all 50 of them right off the top of her head. But no, I couldn't even tell you. I'm sure I've seen them in the past. Actually, I know I've seen some in the past. I was kind of forced into that.
It does happen, sure.
I couldn't name you one.
Well, I'm of the belief that if you've seen one of them, you've probably seen most of them. The Hallmark Channel is continuing its countdown to Christmas Holiday Movie Fest. It's been going since October, by the way, so that people can get their fix of those predictable outcomes. Here's comedian Jenna Kim Jones.
Every 45 seconds, a new Hallmark original Christmas movie is born. And a child actor from the 90s rises again. I told my husband he could no longer watch Hallmark movies with me this year because he's always asking stupid questions like, haven't we seen this one already?
I don't think that's necessarily the worst thing for the husband. But here's the thing. Life is not a Hallmark movie. If somebody follows that cookie cutter retirement plan from another advisor or, a robo advisor, things like that, how could that limit their opportunities?
Well, I think it's very important to not be lumped in with the masses.
Sure.
Right. Like we talk about quite a bit is, there's talking heads or there's national media that say, hey, this is the best strategy since sliced bread. Well, guess what? That could work for somebody, might not work for you.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes concepts are okay for some folks and sometimes they're not. So you don't ever want to be lumped in. You don't want to just be a number. You want to make sure that you do have a tailor-fitted retirement plan for you, because everybody's going to be in a different situation. Like to the Hallmark movies is, yes, you've probably seen that actor, that actress before. The storyline's still going to be the same. Everybody's lovey-dovey at the end, hugs and kisses. Life is grand, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, when you take a look at the real world, it doesn't always work that way. So I think it's very, very important as people approach that retirement red zone that we talk about. And if you're, 3, maybe 5 years away from retirement, take a look at what you're currently doing, because, a lot of people, not necessarily cookie cutter, but they're still doing the same strategies from 40 years ago. Well, guess what? Times are different, right? You've got to keep up with inflation. You also have to keep up with the times. And I think that's where a lot of people go wrong of, okay, well, this has done so well for me in the past. Well, that doesn't mean that it's going to continue to do well in the future. So you don't want to be cookie cutter. You don't want to be stuck, in one of those Hallmark movies. You want to make sure that you write your own script and not have the same script as the last Hallmark movie, which you say every 45 seconds.
Give or take,
Yeah, you don't want to be there.
I truly believe that is the case as far as the turnaround time on those movies. But here's the thing. While we probably don't want that cookie cutter approach, I think we do all strive to have that happy ending in retirement after spending our career, however long it was, saving. So what is the first step in making that happen?
Well, especially in the times that we find ourselves in, we're at the end of the year, and I swear every year just gets faster and faster.
Mm-hmm.
Before you know, we're going to blink, it's going to be summertime again, which after the week of snow we've had this past week, I don't think that's a bad thing to strive for or dream about.
Yeah.
But give us a call. We would love to get you in. I tell you, the first quarter of our year is always the busiest because a lot of people hit the reset. The holidays are over. Now it's really important to focus in on ourselves, whether it's you created a New Year's wish that I forget what the stats are. What is it, like 95% of folks abandon their New Year's resolution by like 15 days or something like
yeah.
that. So, the first quarter is always busy because a lot of people now that we're, I guess, less distracted with the family time, with the holidays, all of these things. Now we can focus in on ourselves and our finances, but also too is a lot of the spending has stopped because let's face it, big spending at the end of the year.
Yeah.
Right. So, I think it's important to, at this point, let's focus in on how we can help. Let's focus in on what you're currently doing and what kind of things are going well, what kind of things need some improving. Because, Chris, I'll tell you, we meet with a lot of folks. I should say that a lot of people do a lot of good things, but there's always a little room for improvement.
Sure.
And that little bit of improvement, whether you're overpaying in fees, whether you're not in the market at all, or you're all in on the market and you're looking to retire tomorrow, there's a lot of things that could need some improving. But if you don't have a local fiduciary that sits down and takes a look at where you're at and what you're doing, give you a little bit of feedback. And at the end of the day, your worst case scenario is you spend a little bit of time with us. We gave you some good knowledge and now you can move forward, right? That's your worst case scenario. Best case scenario is we come in and tell you that, hey, things are going really well, but these things need some improvement. And that could end up saving you in maybe some tax dollars. That could save you in some market loss. There's a lot of things that we can help with. So it's not just taking a look at 401k accounts and taking a look at the investments. This is actual planning. This isn't just taking a look at those statements.
There's retirement saving and there's retirement planning. And that's really what you want to focus on as you enter into that retirement red zone. You spoke of the New Year's resolutions, and I'm sure I'll bring this back up in a couple of weeks, but the people who don't, abandon their resolutions in the first month, the first 15 days or so, something they usually have on their side is that accountability buddy, whether that is a personal trainer to keep them accountable, whether that is friends that are, making sure they're eating healthy, what have you. If you need a little bit of that discipline instilled in you, that is what the team at Welcome Home Financial Partners does is not saying they lock you into, oh, you can't do this, you can't make these changes, but they say, this is the plan and this is what we think you should continue to do as fiduciaries, giving you that advice in that what they think will work in your best interest. what you do at the end of the day, that is ultimately up to you. But having that insight, having that knowledge, and figuring out how to continue to navigate this road towards, through, and beyond retirement all begins with a single phone call. 804-635-3550 to schedule that complimentary time to speak with the team at Welcome Home Financial Partners. 804-635-3550, or you can always find them online, welcomehomefp.com. And once again, we want to thank you for joining us here on Aspire to Retire with Ralph and Tim Short, or with Tim Short this week. Hope you have a great week. Really do appreciate taking the time. Tim, do appreciate you as always. As we wrap up here, I'm going to leave you with the final word.
Yeah, absolutely. And we appreciate your time too. And just to let all the listeners know that there's nothing wrong with the old man. He's doing
right.
Well. He just couldn't make it in today. So, but yeah, so once again, we're at the end of the year. I think it's really good to have that reset and start focusing in on, now that the holidays are over or getting close to being over, there's a lot of things to start taking a look at. So once again, give us a call. We'd love the opportunity to sit down with you, create your very own retirement roadmap, take a look at, tax planning. There's a lot of things that would be incorporated with that, but also see where you currently are and give you a little bit of feedback there. So once again, we appreciate everybody listening. Give us a call, and happy holidays to everyone.
All content is for information purposes only. It is not intended to provide any tax or legal advice or provide the basis for any financial decision, nor is it intended to be a projection of current or future performance or indication or future results. Opinions expressed herein are solely those of Welcome Home Financial Partners and Welcome Home Wealth Advisors, LLC. The information contained in this material has been derived from sources believed to be reliable, but is not guaranteed as to accuracy and completeness, and does not purport to a complete analysis of the materials discussed. All information and ideas should be discussed in detail with your individual advisor prior to the implementation. Each individual investor's situation is different, and any ideas provided may not be appropriate for your particular circumstance. Advisor services are offered by Welcome Home Wealth Advisors, LLC, a registered investment advisor in the state of Virginia. Being registered as an investment advisor does not imply a certain level of skill or training. Insurance products and services are offered through WPI Holding, Virginia Insurance License Number 138509, an affiliated company. The information contained herein should in no way be construed or interpreted as a solicitation to sell or offer to sell advisory services to any resident of any state other than the state of Virginia or where otherwise legally permitted. Welcome Home Wealth Advisors, LLC, and Welcome Home Financial Partners are not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any government agency.